Alrighty, well, we have our skull, my skull, repaired. It was done with the Tech Bond adhesive and the Tech Bond activator. Alright, and the way I did it was I simply put some glue down on a stir stick. Okay. Dip the spear-tipped end of my modeling tool into the glue. Applied it to the broken edge of the bone on the skull after carefully matching up the broken piece, and put the bone in place. Then with a pipette, I don't like to use the spray if I can avoid it. Misting and whatnot, you really don't need to. I put the pipette into the activator, draw some up into the tube, and after I hold the piece in place for a couple of seconds, I drop some activator on it, wipe it off with a little piece of paper towel, and we're good to go. That was continued with all the broken parts. The 2 broken zygomatic arches and the 2 broken bones over the eyes. This is good. This is a good product. Okay, this is a very good product. Let's get the information for it up here. Okay. It's a very good product. I find I like it much better than regular super glue, or anything else on the market for that matter, in a way of working with skins and bone and whatnot. Works real good with natural elements. The interior of the skull has been picked clean as well. You recall there was quite a bit of silicone on the inside. All right, well, that's gone now. Okay, that's all gone. It was picked clean. The silicone still remains. There's a bit of silicone that still remains in the bulbous tympanic bullae structures, but that's all right. The sockets for the eye orbits are now free of clay and clean. There's a little bit of silicone in the nasal cavity, which was mixed into the fine bones, the lacy bones of the sinus cavity. I may pick on that, I may not, because if I do, it will break those delicate bones apart. So I'd rather not do that. Some of the tools used in cleaning the skull are a couple of good dental picks. This one in particular. Let's see if we can get this focused here. There we are. That's a real nasty tool. It has the same tip on both ends. All right. Stainless steel tool, very efficient. I used a good forceps for grasping the silicone. Another dental tool, this curved monstrosity right here. It's like a hawk's talon or something. Again, has the same pattern on both ends. All right. And of course, my handy dandy, always reliable, and favorite stainless steel modeling tool. This little boy right here. Spear tip on one end, spoon shape on the other. I've had this particular tool for about 20 years now. At any rate, the skull is clean, and after the lower jaw, the mandibles, are molded, it will be returned to my collection. Pretty much none the worse for wear. So I'm happy with this. pretty happy indeed. Say goodnight, Gracie. Now for the mold. These are the pieces of plywood that were cut to fit across the top and the bottom. Before any casting is made, these boards will have to have a really, really good coating of paste wax applied. You could use Johnson's paste wax. I have another product from Smooth On called Sonite paste wax. Whatever it works. A couple of good coats, buff it real well, another coat, and then we'll put the we'll coat it with the Vaseline and mineral spirit treatment. Let's show what the molds look like. I'm not making the noise, it's making its own popping noise. The mold has since been repaired. I did as I explained I would do, but for the lower portion, it was very easy to replace the skull back into its mold. So what I did was first put some silicone down into this hole while it was sitting on the work table, and I let that fill up a bit. Whatever leaked out sealed the bottom, as you can see here. Okay. I then returned the skull. I then put in a few more drops of the silicone until the hole was filled. Then replaced the skull into the lower portion of the mold, pressing it down firmly so that it would be seated as it was when it was first unmolded. Okay? I let that sit several hours, came back to it, lifted the skull out, and the repair was made. For the top, I did not want to reinstall the skull into the upper portion of the mold because there were so many broken bones. I did not want to add to the carnage. So I injected, or not injected, but inserted silicone through the hole in the top. Blip, blip, blip. It went down. I lifted it up, and lo and behold, discovered there was in fact a hole in the bottom. It was located here. All right, let me see. It was located right here. See where this shiny part is now. So I had to wipe the interior of this mold out, make sure there was nothing left on the surface. I let it set. I let what was in there set. Then I mixed up another batch of silicone, again with a pipette. I went in from the hole on the inside, filled it, wiped away the excess, tilted it so it would dry like so, the mold in the area to be repaired. Now that Humpty Dumpty was repaired, I went a little further on the cleaning. I did take out the silicone from the nasal cavity. Got the majority of it out. As you can see, didn't destroy the nasal bones as much as I thought it was. It seems that while this skull was drying and mostly wet, I was able to grab the silicone with a forceps and with this dental probe or pick, and I was able to actually pull it out, and it came out pretty well. Okay. Let me show you what's been done since. What we have here is the first reproduction out of the mold. This is the Smoothcast 305. It has a slower setting time than the standard Smoothcast 300. And this is a beautiful skull to use for a sculpture. It is mostly solid, but there should be enough hollow to it where I can drill out the rear end, the brain cavity. Let's see. Yeah, you can see the light shining through here. Let me kill this video light for a moment. You can see the light shining through the skull, all right? Which means that the inside of the skull case, the brain case, is hollow. Of course, we're solid here at the back, and I'll explain why. This was molded, this was cast using a rotational casting machine, a Manitron casting machine. You can also cast the resin skull by hand. You can rotate the mold after it's assembled. You rotate the mold in your hand. You have to go frontwards, sideways. Back this up so you can see what I'm doing. You would have to roll it front to front, side to side, over and under, like so. This is exactly what the mold making machine I have here in my shop does. I've made a lot of sculptures, made a lot of molds, made a lot of castings of them. Making a hollow casting uses less resin product and yields a more evenly produced casting. One of the main things that is done for a casting is the preparation to the mold. Oh, what you're seeing here is the often spoke about vervet monkey skull. So now we have a vervet monkey skull reproduction, African Wildcat reproduction, and the original African Wildcat skull. If you want to just make up a skull and throw it into a collection and just have fun with it, you can take a Dremel tool and you can route out where the clay sealed up the nostrils. All right. Another reason why this was a lot easier to demold than the cat, you notice at the rear of the eye sockets of the cat, they are open. That allows 2 locking points. Now, to be perfectly honest, this reproduction skull did hang up in the mold, and these did snap off. Both sides snapped off and were pulled out of the mold and reapplied with super glue. Okay, so again, the firmness of this mold does not allow a lot of leeway in removing it. So there was a bit of snapping that took place. Using this mold to create more skulls without any breakage is a simple matter of, I will have to create a cut across the top, right down the center. I'll have to create what's called a zipper cut. Win just one for the zipper. And that's done by first finding the center, by holding it up to a light, finding the center of the skull, like so. Once that's done, there's a way to find it here. It's hard to do it with the video light on. But once the center of the skull is determined, okay, you can also draw a line from the center of the skull like so, from the back of the skull like so. It doesn't have to be drafted absolutely correctly, but more or less centered. down the front of the mold. You then turn the mold over, make a mark at the front and the rear of where those marks are, and with a sharp scalpel or an X-Acto knife, you cut essentially what becomes a zipper-like pattern. Like so. You cut this just so far down, maybe about a 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch down, before you reach the top portion of the interior of the mold. Okay? You then make a straight cut from the front to the rear of the top of the mold. This will allow the mold to come away like so, and will allow you to pop free one side at the top, pop free the other side at the top. Now, the best way to do that is with the skull, inside the mold. Or would be to make a second casting, all right, and after it's cured, while it's still within the mold, make the zipper cut, because that will give the interior of the mold some support that you would otherwise not have if there was no skull in there. That will also hold the silicone tight together as you reach in with your knife to cut it free. Okay? The bottom had no trouble releasing. No trouble whatsoever. You can see the teeth just came out beautifully on here. All right. This is a real fine casting. And like I said, I'm not going for museum quality here. All right. I want a good reproduction skull that I can use for a casting. All right. And if anyone would like to buy copies of it, I can sell them a copy of a cat skull if they want to do their own sculptures or for whatever reason. All right. Now, this is done. I will show the procedure for prepping the mold for creating a casting. The first thing that's done is be sure there's nothing on the inside of the mold. Okay? The next thing, ordinary baby powder. This is a color application bottle that you can get from a beauty supply, like Sally's Beauty Supply. All right? Simple thing. You need to powder the mold. This is the only release agent I use. It's talcum powder. Put it down into where the teeth are located. And spray it all, squirt it all around the whole interior of the mold. All right? We then take a little makeup brush, pat the talcum powder everywhere. All right. We take some of the Vaseline and mineral spirits mixture, coat the tops of the little mushroom buttons, all right, our little key locks, okay. Any hairs that happen to get onto the thing, make sure they get off. Make sure the front and rear of the mold are aligned, and press the mold down onto the key locks. Give them a little back and forth action. All right. To make sure that it's nice and snug. Turn the mold over. Perform wipeout. Now what that has just done was knock the powder into the top portion of the mold. And it's tight. Those lock it in there really tight. I'm picking it up by the bottom section. It's not coming apart. And it won't come apart until you pull it apart. I knock it back and forth and all around. Now I lift the bottom part away from the top. All right. Now the entire mold interior has been coated with talcum powder. Okay. What you want to do now is you want to make sure that it's in all the tight recesses. And you can see here we need some powder in those recesses. So we take the brush, just dip it in the makeup brush, and then kind of power puff that into there. I guess I don't know what else you call it. But you make sure that the powder is covering the entire interior surface of the mold. All right. We go over the bottom again. The next thing you need to do, you take this over to a garbage pail. All right. And simply dump out the excess powder. Blow out the excess powder. Slap out the excess powder. You want to remove the excess powder from your mold half. Nice thing about baby powder, your shop will smell like a baby's bottom. That's not so bad. All right. There we are. We are now prepped to commence casting another resin skull. And that will be the next portion of my video.